Hi, I'm Reluctant Artsy, and I'm back. I took about 3 weeks off. I was very, very sick with a flu, and then I had to catch up for work and everything, and so now I'm back, and I thought I'd talk about something that I've literally just come back from, and that's volunteering at your local middle school, elementary school, and introducing D&D. Last year at around this time, I thought to myself, I want to give back to the community, and I want to give back to the kids something that I wish that I had when I was a teenager. And of course, D&D was just really starting at that time, and also at that time, Satan was totally involved with the Dungeons and Dragons community, and I thought to myself that I wanted to do something for the kids and do something for myself. So I spoke to the principal, and I volunteered in the afternoon from around 2:30 to around a quarter to 4. So I have about an hour and a quarter to run D&D with 3 different groups. So I have 2 groups of grade 5 students. They're around 10 years old. And then I have, and both of those groups are for students. And then there's another group that are middle school age, and I think the majority are in grade 7, and then there's one girl that's in grade 8, and that's a group of 5. I just want to give you some of my experiences. So there's this really, really shy girl, and just introducing, like, first day of playing D&D, I wanted them to get used to rolling a 20-sided dice, what a 20-sided dice look like. And this really, really shy girl it decides to be a wizard. And she casts Firebolt, and she gets a 20. She gets a crit right at the end, just before the buses come, right when they're getting ready to leave. And she was just so proud of herself that she told everybody in school about what was going on, and that she really enjoyed it. This was day 1. And the principal, the week later, came back to me and said, she's completely blossomed. She's changed from that attitude of being so shy and so nervous. And she would mention a lot of the times that she was shy and nervous. 2 weeks later, because those grade 5 groups run on alternate weeks. So I have 2 groups, one on a Tuesday, one on Wednesday. The Wednesday group is the middle school youth, and that's a weekly D&D event. And the others are twice a month. Well, when we got back together with this person, she did it again just before the end of the session. I had her roll, and I said, watch, you're going to get another 20. And she said, you jinxed me. And then she rolled it, and she did actually get another 20. Pretty amazing. You never know what's going to happen with D&D and how it's going to influence these kids. So that's kind of cute. That's a cute story. Well, as we've been developing the characters and stuff, each group has become increasingly unique. Now, I went on drive-through review, and I bought a whole bunch of different modules, to use a good old-fashioned term for modules, and got some modules off of drive-through review, and I looked at them, and I used some stuff. I was really keen on a particular adventure set in the Isles off of Waterdeep. And so I'm trying to figure out how to work this with the kids. And I start slowly, but they start to become imaginative and offering these stories, these backstories for their characters. So at first, it was the middle school students that just excelled at creating a story. So what they've done is they have one individual whose character was searching for a nemesis who supposedly killed her parents. Next thing you know, another chimes in and says, well, my mother is a dragon. The character is a dragonborn. My mother, and I know how it works, but my mother is a dragon, but she transforms herself and she looks like a human. Well, she's evil. And so now that they've got this other character backstory, and then there's another character who says, well, okay, well, I'm a noble, and this character stole from that one's mother, and they're all intertwining their stories together, so that now it's made my job as a DM so much easier because they've already created the backstory, and I just need to get out the characters. So there's Thorgo, who's the big kind of boss, and then there was Gadrick, who wrote a note to Balak, who was just a goblin boss, and but had a necklace that was controlling the goblins around, and they were frothing at the mouth. Well, that was the item that was stolen by one of the characters from this draconic mother. And now they're on their way to find Gadrick. And of course they'll find Thorgo, and then they have, I think I named the dragon Ozymandias. Well, there's going to be a lot of interplay, but it was all created by the kids. Today, I'm really jacked, and that's why I just turned on the computer and said, I'm going to record this. A couple of weeks ago, I said to myself, I've got to give them a boss. They're directionless. I don't know what they're doing. And so I decided that I was going to give them an illithid. So they're level 3. All of these groups are level 3 now. And I thought to myself, well, I'll dumb it down a little bit so that it's approachable for them, but it gives them that sense of dire consequences if they fail. So a couple of weeks ago, they were fighting goblins, and goblins were taking these peasants. Well, these peasants were just kind of like snacks for the illithid. They went around this maze, and then they kind of come around in this circular tube that is a spaceship, essentially, but their characters wouldn't know this. And it's all this weird black metal with a dark green glow that comes from what would be in our day LED lighting. Very moody. And so anyway, they started to attack the illithid, and the illithid had vanished. But they had a whole bunch of bodies. So I thought to myself, today what I'd do is I'd open up kind of like a camera aperture where it opens up and it's going to swallow all these goblins and dead bodies. The illithid's gone. The characters are on top of this kind of circular bottom of what is this cavernous spiral upside down hive, as it were, with a whole bunch of doors. But the doors all have a hand imprint that needs to open up the doors. Well, this aperture thing on the floor starts opening up quite quickly, and it's a garburator, essentially. It opens up fully, and these bodies start falling down. Well, two of the characters made their dex saving throw. There was one away today, and one of the characters didn't make his dex saving throw, and the only thing I could think of is, you're falling. So I was perfectly prepared to kill the character, even though he's 10 years old, right? And we had talked about this, about whether or not they were cool with that and what the implications would be. And so everybody knew about a month ago that, they could lose their character. So the character's falling, and automatically, here's this 10-year-old who really has no clue about 3rd level or anything like that. He's an Eldritch Knight, and I gave him Featherfall. Now, this was about a month ago that I gave it to him. He automatically says, I cast Featherfall on him. cast Featherfall. The other character, who's a druid, just happens to have a rope and says, I'm going to make a lasso. But he didn't describe it like that, but he said, I'm going to make this, I'm going to get my rope and I'm going to attach it to him and then I'm going to pull him. And it was brilliant. I kept on throwing out inspiration, and the kids love inspiration because it gives them a second chance. And they were rolling really crap today. It was great. They're engaged. They're enjoying this experience. And I'm enjoying the experience as well because it's feeding my love of the game, but it's also captivating me because I'm seeing it through young people's eyes. They don't have any limitations for what can happen or what can't happen. They're not arguing about the rules. They're just thinking about the moment. So anyway, Druid grabs this fighter barbarian, I forget what he is. Anyway, and leaps him back. He's in Featherfall, so we imagine that this character is very, very light, bounces off the back wall, takes some damage, and they all have a great laugh. And then another Illithid starts speaking to them. Starts from about 60 feet above and speaks to one in particular and says, I want this other character's brain. And he says, in his head, back to the Illithid, I'll give you this guy. Now, at this point, they've discovered that they need an Illithid hand to actually escape this hive. Well, doesn't one of the characters say, I want to cut off his hand? So you have this barbarian or fighter, I forget what he is, who's got a crossbow pointed to his friend, whose back is turned, doesn't realize that the Illithid is starting to descend because he's so hungry. He's willing to shoot his friend to get this Illithid to come down closer and closer and closer to him. The Illithid comes within 10 feet. The Druid says that he's going to transform. He's Druid of the Moon, Circle of the Moon, transforms into a direwolf, leaps up, jumps, grabs the Illithid, bites him. The Eldritch Knight throws his weapon, and I do dexterity. I do it as a dexterity base, but he does throw it, and he is able to get his weapon back. So he throws it, and both of them hit. But he uses Booming Blade. And so I figured that the effects of Booming Blade would make the Illithid a little stunned. So he does grapple this barbarian fighter guy. And so they're grappled. And time is running out. I mean, an hour and 15 minutes to run an after-school program with younger kids, especially, is very, very daunting because the time is going very fast. Imagine an hour and 15 minutes to do an encounter. And we did all this. Anyway, so it's just before the time. And I say to him, you can cut off the hand if you get a really high hit. I'm thinking in my mind a 19 or 20. But really, I'm thinking a crit. And I tell them, this isn't part of D&D, but I'll let you try. Doesn't the guy roll a natural 20 and crits? This is why I love role-playing games. You just never know. And I said to him, you've got the hand. And what the Illithids do, they do vanish. And so he teleports out without his hand. The hand is down there. And so now they have this pass key to get through the doors to further their adventure. And they will come across, Intellect Devourers. They'll come across Drow. And I want to push them to realize the fear of everything. So the other group, the other middle school group, is there, and this was last week, and they hadn't met for a long time. They just leveled up to 3rd, and I'm scratching my head trying to figure out, because I want each group to be run differently, so that if they talk to each other, they're not doing the same campaign. So anyway, here they are, talking aloud about what they'd like to face. They come up with a half pig, half cow unicorn So it's half pig, half cow, but it has a unicorn tusk. It is sparkly and furry and nicely colored. I haven't figured that one out. It breathes poison and it has wings. So I am creating this character for them to fight. And they're all psyched. And they just kept on coming up with these ideas that were absolutely bizarre, but really, really funny. And then, of course, we have this girl, very, very kind of, normal old 10-year-old girl. And she goes really dark and she says, well, it's taken children. I'm like, what? You can't do this. You're in elementary school. What are you talking about? Okay, well, 21 children. He's taken 21 children. 22, she says. And I'm like, what? She says, one of them was killed. And here I am thinking to myself, how am I going to explain this to the principal? Anyway, so they do have the 21 kids. And I'm going to introduce this next week on Tuesday with those kids and try to figure out, they're going to go on a sea voyage first to get to the island where this creature lives. I have until June, so I'm going to put a whole bunch of things in their way. I think they're going to have a bit of a shipwreck probably. So the middle school kids actually have inspired me with the shipwreck idea. This is the group that has this master plan of the dragon and this, thrall and that thrall, and everybody's working for everybody else, and they're stealing jewels for the dragon because everybody needs to feed the dragon the loot and magic items and all this stuff. And Gadrick's there writing messages saying, you've got to get me 1,000 gold per week, and you've got to get me 5 magic items per week. And everybody's freaking out. And this group of adventurers is trying to figure out the puzzle of who's connected to who. Well, they go on a sea voyage, and I have them have a water elemental attack the boat. So the water elemental is just bashing away at the boat. There's a storm. It's night. And there's 5 player characters. Excuse me. And they just played it out so well. They were down below ship. They had to roll dexterity saves to get upstairs. Or not saves, but regular dex, acrobatics and stuff like that to get upstairs, strength, athletics to open up the hatch to get out onto the deck. And there's this boat filled with this family of basically sailors who have been commissioned to bring this group to the next step. And they're all dying, and they're all family members, so everybody's screaming and yelling, and there's all this confusion. And the intensity of the scene and the possibility of drowning and the possibility of losing characters without thinking about, the rules of the structures, arguing about things. It was amazing. The way that they interacted with each other, the way that they thought. All of this is to say, if you're able to volunteer at a local school, even if it's grade 5 kids or grade 6 kids, preferably I would say that I wouldn't go younger than grade 5, and I'd be very careful about the way to introduce grade 5 kids to it. You've got to start really slow, and they do not understand the dice or what the dice look like. And with character sheets, Reluctant Artsy did one. It's on Drive-Thru. It's on DM's Guild. So it's called Introductory Color Character Sheet or something like that. But anyway, it's in there either under Douglas Painter or Reluctant Artsy. And wow, like the kids get it, but you got to have it color coded. They have to understand the character sheet, because if they don't understand the character sheet, they're completely and totally lost. And then you just spend all that hour explaining rules. But they did get it. It didn't take them that long. And just go slow. I used goblins. Goblins were great, and I did use a giant at one point because they're powerful, and I'm giving them magic items, not tons, but enough so that they have the basics: +1 things, bag of holding. Somebody has a belt of strength. Just for fun. And the person who has the belt of strength is the grade 8 girl who is not going to be able to play next year. So volunteer, do something with your love of role playing and take it into the community and introduce it to others. This is absolutely fantastic, and I can't recommend volunteering enough. It has been immense for me, and it's really jogged my creative juices. Anyway, take care, have a great time, and I hope that I will see you soon for something with Ironsorn, a continuation of Ironsorn. I've got some other ideas that are coming up. Take care. See you soon. Bye.